Good morning, everyone. We are live and it's 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the Learn One New Thing webinar. My name is Sydney Baxter and I'm a training specialist here at the Ag Leader Academy. I'll be walking you through today's webinar, Learn One New Thing, where we hope you learn one new thing about our data management platforms, both AgFiniti and SMS. Today's topic is all about organizing data, both in the management tree on SMS and within your management tree in AgFiniti. Just a reminder before we get started that today's webinar is recorded and will be uploaded to the Learn One New Thing playlist, where you can watch it at any point in time or share it with a friend if you find it useful. I'm going to begin sharing my screen here, and we will begin with one of the 5 ways you can begin to organize your data on SMS. So you should be able to see my screen here, and I am an SMS advanced user. I have a couple maps pulled up across the top to show you and demonstrate in class, and I have 4 growers listed within my management tree here. I'm going to be showing you 5 different ways you can organize data using these 4 growers worth of data. The first example I want to show you is a common mistake across many different computer softwares or just in general with technology, and that's renaming a field. If we go into Dan Henning's property and we see he has the E East farm, we notice that the E East is a typo within the field name. Now this can work for, duplicating letters here, or it can also work if you just rename the field entirely something different within your display. So you have a display, you named it field 1, you actually come back to SMS and don't remember what field 1 referred to, and you want to rename the field. Would be a great use case for this. You can rename this field by right-clicking on the field you wish to change and choosing Edit Item. One thing to note here in SMS, many of the times, if you want to change what you see, you just right-click. That's a quick tip. So to rename that field, choose Edit Item, and here you can begin retyping the name of the field you wish to see in SMS. So for this example, I'm just going to remove that first E, and there we have the field name of just the East field. Now, if I wanted to reassign my grower and farm down below, so let's say this field came in under the wrong grower farm, I could reassign those by choosing the dropdown and selecting from the growers I've already have in the management tree, or adding a new grower and farm directly from this screen as well. Choose OK to exit out of this window. That change will be applied to the management tree and can be seen under the Dan Henning farm field. That's a quick way to begin managing and reorganizing, cleaning up data within SMS. Now, the next tool I want to show you is merging fields. The field we're going to look at for this example is Grower Meyer Farms, and the Home 50.1 and Home E fields here. Now, I've already got a tab pulled up and renamed to demonstrate what happened for Grower Meyer here. In this case, Grower Meyer had 2 operators who called this field 2 different things. The operators called the field Home E and Home 50.1. I can open these fields both in the preview window to confirm that they look alike. So I open a preview of Home E and Home 50.1 to see that they have a very similar shape. Or you can do what I've done here and added the Home E field, just the boundary outline, to the mapping area, as well as the data, the grain harvest data from Home 50.1. And the reason I added the grain harvest data was simply to contrast with the boundary data that you see from the Home E field. Once we add those on top of each other using Add to Current Map, we can see that this Home 50.1 does in fact fit within the Home E field, and we need to merge the 2 fields to see all of the data contained under Home 50.1 now under Home E. We'll do that by right-clicking on the field level, beginning with the field we no longer want to see. Right-click and choose Merge Fields. Here, SMS is going to ask us, where do you want Home E or Home 50.1 to be stored? Find the Home E field under Grower Meyer Farms, Home E, and choose OK. And SMS is now going to store that Home 50.1 field under Home E. There we see our 1997 grain harvest data listed under the Home E field, and Home 50.1 no longer exists in the management tree. This is a quick way to begin cleaning up data where you have 2 fields that refer to the same geographical space or the same field in this location. What would have prevented this from even coming in as two separate fields would have been a field boundary. So we touched on field boundaries pretty heavily 5-ish weeks ago in our very first Learn One New Thing webinar, where we talked about the importance of boundaries both in the display in the field, as well as boundaries within SMS and AgFiniti. If we would have had a set field boundary on this home E field, which if you notice in my preview window, I don't have a set field boundary, Home 50.1 would have automatically come in under Home E and be categorized under Home E, knowing that the boundary is going to tie all of that data that we collected into that Home E field. Boundaries are also going to be important for the next two tools I want to show you in SMS. These are going to be spatial sorting tools. In order for spatial sorting tools to work, we do have to have a boundary. SMS has to know where in space your field is located in order to automatically spatially sort. The example we're going to use for spatial sorting loads into fields is going to be the Taden field boundary. If you look under Grower Meyer, again, Meyer Farms, we have the Taden field. I've set the Taden field boundary and I'm confident in this field boundary, so I can use it for spatial sorting functions. Once again, do not use spatial sort unless you are confident in the field boundaries you have set within your fields. Let's say I've been managing Grower Meyer's farm for a while, and I'm looking through all of these fields, and I notice many of them have the exact same name. So I create a map of this Taden field boundary, and I begin adding data sets or these fields to the Taden field. Here I'll pull up an example of a map that I've created and renamed, where I found two different fields listed in Grower Meyer's Farms to be contained within the Taden field boundary. Again, what I did here was create a map of Taden using the Create New Map, and I searched through each of these fields that are named TAD, TAD 15.8, TAD 65, and I noticed that TAD 17.8 grain harvest data fits perfectly into the Taden field boundary. The way I fit that in there was just to add to current map. So I noticed that multiple of these fields are referencing the same field. Again, this would happen if an operator called that field something different than what the other operator called the field. And as you were reading it into SMS, without a field boundary, it didn't know how to spatially sort your data. So we see this example here where we can use the spatial sorting tool to look at all of Grower Meyer's data within his farm and spatially sort the data based on the field boundary we have set. Now we're confident in that Taden field boundary. We've identified a few fields, so TAD 17.8 fits within the Taden field boundary you see here, as well as the TAD 65 field. Here I'll split my screen to show you how the TAD field looks very similar to the Taden field, if not identical. So I've created a new map of TAD 65, as well as the map I was previously showing you of Taden TAD 17.8. And now I'll show you the map of the TAD field, where we can see this piece of data perfectly fits within the Taden field boundary as well. So here we have three fields that fit within the Taden field boundary. I'm going to look at all of Grower Meyer's data using the spatial sort tool and sort these three fields into the respective field boundary where they really belong. Let me switch my window back to a single window here to keep it clear before I go and spatially sort. This tool will be used at the farm level because we want to consider all of the fields listed in the farm. So in order for this to work, navigate to the farm level, right-click, and choose Sort Loads into Fields. Here, SMS is going to look at all the loads we have contained within Grower Meyer's farm. It's identified 114 loads within this farm, and of those 114 loads, 25 of them, which we can see here, have been moved. Where are they being moved? You can see listed under each year, we have the loads that are moved from their original location to their new location, which is described at the top of this window here. 25 of these loads from TAD 17.8, TAD, and TAD 65 will now be moved to the Taden field boundary, which we see listed on the right here. To save this, we would choose close at the bottom. There is no formal save button. One mistake that people make in class is, and it's truly not a mistake, is they choose this save as button thinking that that is going to save their work. This save as button is nothing more than a paper receipt that gets saved to your computer. That way, if you were wondering where this data ever went, say you were troubleshooting, you have something to go back and look at. So just saves this text document to your computer for you to reference later. It doesn't actually save your work. To save your work, to make this change final, choose the close button at the bottom. Then go back into Grower Meyer Farms, and you'll notice we no longer have that TAD 17.8 field. We no longer have the TAD 65 field, and something has changed about the TAD field. All of that data is contained under the Taden field boundary, where we now see that 1997 and 1994 grain harvest data. All of that data will be stored under the Taden field boundary and can be mapped or included in reports. While we're here, let's talk about TAD, just to show you what it looks like when we have unbolded data in the tree. If you look at TAD compared to the rest of the words in the management tree, you'll notice that it looks a little different than the rest. We begin opening the field. We notice we still have unbolded data. And when we go all the way down to the operation data here, we can't create a map of this unbolded data. Unbolded data means we have no spatial data tied to this field within our management tree. We can't create a map of this data. However, this data will still be useful whenever we create reports, right? We have all of this summary information listed here in our summary window about the TAD field. We don't want to just delete TAD out, so we're going to use the merge tool function that I showed you previously to merge this TAD field with the Taden field boundary. Once I find that Taden field boundary, I can choose OK to make that change permanent. One thing I want to mention while we're in this window is you see we have TAD 65 and TAD 17.8 here that are both unbolded and unused. These will remain in this window as long as they are in SMS. We haven't fully deleted them out. I'll show you how to do that in a moment, but I did just want to point your attention to call that out right now. We might not see them in the management tree, but they still exist in the background of SMS. Back to merging, we'll merge TAD with Taden, choose OK. And now if we look under Grower Meyer, his property looks a little bit cleaner, only containing 5 separate fields that are all referencing different GPS locations. That was the spatial sorting tool. Spatial sorting, I should have said this at the beginning, uses 5 specific GPS data points. All right, so that's what SMS is doing in the background. It's looking at all of those loads and it's identifying 5 specific GPS data points and determining if 3 of those 5 fall within the set field boundary that we are attempting to merge it or to spatially sort it to. However, if 5 of those GPS data points do not fall within the field boundary, SMS will not recognize that field as needing to be spatially sorted. So we have an additional tool for more fine-tuning for cleaning up your management tree, and that's called split load region. The example I want to show you for split load region is under Dan Henning Farms, and the Cotton Severson field. As I'm looking at this Severson field, I pull up his grain harvest map, and I notice immediately in my preview window that this L shape of data does not belong in the Severson field boundary. Right, you can see here, once the satellite imagery caches, that this field to the north contains a different type of crop, or it should not be contained within the Severson field boundary. Now, I've created a map ahead of time just to demonstrate what happened here. Let's say we've been managing Dan Henning's data for a while, or Dan Henning is our farm, and we see that the L shape of data belongs within the COT field boundary that's located across the road. What happened here, what might be a good example of happening here, would be as we were harvesting, we finished up in the Severson field and began harvesting across the road in the COT field, but we forgot to switch regions. So now this L shape of data comes into SMS under the Severson farm, but actually belongs in the COT farm. We could use spatial sorting tools to sort our loads into fields, like I previously showed you, But that probably would have failed in this case because three of those 5 GPS data points listed would not be in the Severson field boundary. So SMS wasn't able to spatially sort this L shape of data into the COT field boundary, and it assigned it to the Severson field boundary. We need a tool that's going to look at every single GPS data point within the Severson or within one of these loads and spatially sort that load that contains that L shape of data to the COT farm. Whenever you're using this tool, split load region, you do need to go all the way down to the load level. So under the Severson farm that I wanted to look at, I need to find which load is the culprit of this L shape of data. So which load was I harvesting that I forgot to switch regions in? I can begin clicking through my loads. And once I get to load 2, I'll immediately notice in the preview window that this L shape of data is listed under load 2, and load 2 is the one that needs to be split. What we're going to do is right-click on this load and choose Split Load Region. Again, SMS is going to look at every single GPS data point within this load and identify which data points need to be moved to the COT farm. Again, it's going to give us a paper receipt where SMS is telling us we looked at 9,000 GPS data points, that 9,307 GPS data points, and 88 of those data points needed to be moved to the field boundary. It's going to tell us from where it was moved and where it's going. So 88 of those GPS data points will now be moved from the Severson field to the COT field. And again, we have the option to save this paper receipt. To close out of this and to make it a formal change, we'd simply choose close. If we go back into Dan Henning Farms, the COT field and the Severson field will now no longer contain that L shape of data that we previously saw in the management tree and in the preview window, and that data will now be contained under the COT farms. Those are 4 simple ways you can clean up data in your management tree. But like I mentioned earlier, just because you have data cleaned up in your management tree doesn't mean that it's all the way cleaned up in SMS. To clean up completely everything we see in SMS, to make sure nothing reappears that we deleted out, we want to go to Tools and Management Item Editor. Within the Management Item Editor, SMS is going to show us all the different grower farms and fields that we have ever listed within SMS, and we can delete out anything that's unused. The example I want to show you is under the field level. We didn't delete out any growers or farms, or we didn't delete or spatially sort, I should say. However, with our fields, we did spatially sort. So you'll notice that TAD 65 and TAD 17.8 are still listed within this list here, meaning that if SMS tries to read it again, there's potential that it could be read in under this TAD 17.8. In order for us to fully clean up our management tree, we'll want to delete out anything that's unused. Simply highlight and choose Delete to delete out those unused management items. We don't recommend deleting out anything below the field level, as this is going to alter your product mixes that might show up in SMS. So make sure when you're deleting items out here, only delete above the field level. Going to delete out TAD 65 and close out of this window. And that was the 5 simple ways that we could clean up our SMS management tree. At this time, I'd like you to drop any questions you might have in the chat, and I'm going to switch my screens over to AgFiniti to begin showing you how we can clean up our data within AgFiniti. Okay, so what you see on my screen here is now AgFiniti, where I've gone to the hamburger menu on the right side and into Manage Data. Within Manage Data, you'll notice I have 6 different fields listed here, where I can begin cleaning up these fields, reassigning them, renaming them, and merging them. Those are the 3 tools I'm going to show you. Classic example, which I showed you at the beginning of this webinar, is renaming a field. So say you have a grower that often renames the field something different than what you know it as, or what he even knows it as. He's just quick typing because he wants to hurry up and get in the field. You can rename that field by choosing the pencil and paper icon, and a dialog on the left side of the screen will pop up, allowing you to change the field name. So let's delete that first E out. We just want it to be East, as well as changing the grower and farm in which this field is assigned to. Once you complete those changes, be sure to choose the checkbox on the right side of this panel to save those changes and make them final. The next example I want to show you is under the My Files page. Let's say you're reading in data and you get all this data that looks similar to the files that I have listed on my screen here. Some of them come in as this East 40 ag leader field display, planting data, and that might be helpful to you if you can code your data that way. However, you might have a file that comes in that is just dated with the, timestamp. This example here, 2013-5/17, that's not super helpful when I go to search this data. And instead of using this name, I would like to name it the operation that it was, when it took place, and the field that it contains. To do so, I can choose the checkbox right next to it, select the Edit pencil, and begin to edit this file name. So in this example, this is the MinW71 field, and I want to name it a planting operation for 2013. I can begin tagging that file using the tags we talked about 3 weeks ago in the AgFiniti 5 Ways to Get Data in webinar. I can tag the custom grower farm, or I can tag a custom grower farm field and product if I wish for easy searching in the future. And then once I complete the editing, I can choose Save to save the name of that file. That's going to help me as I am searching files in the future by either searching for a specific tag or a name of that field to find it and share it or download it, whatever you're going to be doing with that file. Helps with organization. The next tool I want to show here, if you go to the hamburger menu and the mapping area, is merging fields. Here I have an example of 2 fields, Boonder 1 and Boonder 2. Let's say that these 2 fields were actually supposed to come in together, but I harvested 1 on one day and 2 on the second day. They're located right next to each other, so I want to use the merge tool within AgFiniti to merge this into a single field. I can do so by going back to Manage Data, so hamburger menu, Manage Data, selecting the field that I no longer want to see. So again, we're beginning with the field that we no longer want to see in our Manage Data tree, choosing Edit Management, selecting Fields, finding the field we want to merge it with, and choosing Merge Field at the bottom here. We'll find the field we want to merge it with, and once we select that field, we would choose the checkbox to confirm these changes. Now, I'm not going to do that right now because it will take a moment to process, but on your mapping screen, you'll be able to see Boonder 1 is now the name, formal title of both of these fields that have now been merged together. To get back out of here, I'll choose back multiple times. And then I want to show you one last thing for cleaning up data in your management tree on AgFiniti. If we go back to our mapping area, and let's say we want to look at all of our fields from this planting season, I can begin changing the data filter at the top. And I'm scrolling through my fields list, and I notice that the 80 field has no GPS data. The icon next to the 80 that we see here means that we cannot map this field. We click into it. As AgFiniti doesn't recognize where in the world the 80 is located, but the name still came into AgFiniti. This name will sync back out to the display if we're connected to AgFiniti and an internet connection. We no longer want to see the name of this field in the display because we aren't using this field whenever we're logging data. To get this name out of AgFiniti, we would go back to Managing Data, choose Edit Management, select Fields, and find the field we wish to delete out of AgFiniti. We would simply choose Delete Field at the bottom, confirm that deletion, and we should no longer see the 80 listed in our fields or our mapping area. Now, one thing I want to note here, just because you delete it out of AgFiniti doesn't mean it's all the way out of your display. If you're going to spend time cleaning up your data management platforms, be sure you spend time cleaning up your display as well, because once they sync, they will reappear. And you don't want to be stuck in this perpetual cycle of the names you deleted out of AgFiniti are still in the display and vice versa. In terms of content, that's all I have for you this week. Those were the different ways you can organize data in SMS and AgFiniti. Give me a moment here and I'll begin sharing my screen for you to complete the survey for this week. We do find the survey very helpful. Your responses are very helpful for planning the next week's worth of content. The next time we will go live will be July 29th, and that will be in preparation for the SMS Advanced class that will host on July 30th. You can sign up for that SMS Advanced class at academy.agleader.com, and that class will be primarily focused on the SMS Advanced license. Thank you all for attending this Learn One New Thing webinar. I encourage you to take the survey. Hannah, the training intern here at the Academy, is going to drop the link in the chat for you all to take if you prefer to click on that chat link. And I appreciate you all spending time with us today.